Back in June 4th of 2012, the LAPD arrested Matchell Howard, and by all accounts, they should have arrested him. He was apparently driving drunk. He had crossed over to the wrong side of the street for a little while. When they arrested him, they found out he had a little bit of cocaine in his system as well, and he was acting erratically. In fact, they had to chase him for a while in the car. They finally got him. Now, you're going to see the video of what happened after they brought him into the precinct. Now, this happened back in 2012. There was a case over that was resolved in 2015. I'm going to tell you what happened with that case after we watch the video. ProPublica did a great job here investigating this case. They've got this video. And one thing I want to point out before you watch it, you'll see that he's walking around with, his shirt unbuttoned. That influenced me a little bit too about, the status of Howard before he went into the precinct. But in reality, they had strip searched him. That's why his shirt was unbuttoned. Just a tiny bit of context, but we'll give you a lot more after you watch the video. Here you go. So here he comes. They tell him to take a seat on the bench. At this point, everything's okay. He's not even, handcuffed, and they come in and they handcuff him on the bench. So obviously, the cops are not overly worried at this point. And then he really wanted to go to the nurse, so they start bringing him to the nurse. Again, things are totally fine. About 90 seconds later, we then come back in here, and the struggle has begun. So now you see there's 4 different cops on him. 2 others come by. What appears to be a supervisor, at least, is in the area. And Juan Romero says that he bit him. You see it in the text that ProPublica put in there. And he applied a chokehold. He says for only 5 seconds, but that's entirely unclear. That chokehold will be very important later in the story. I believe this is the most disturbing part of the tape, when he's lying motionless, and you'll see here the cops are still joking around, and then they realize this is a very big problem. 4 minutes later, they finally begin to try to resuscitate him. It didn't work. And later, as you can see there, at the hospital, he's pronounced dead. So, there was an investigation. There was a lawsuit brought by his family, and they won. They won $2.85 million because there was no need for this, and Howard didn't have to die on that day. So now, let me explain my take on it. So if you say, hey, the guy's intoxicated, he shouldn't have been driving drunk, I'm 100% with you. At some point, there was an altercation, a little bit off camera, and he shouldn't have done that with the cops, no problem. Look, we're not saying that the situation wasn't annoying. We're not saying that Howard's an angel. What we're saying is you have to use proportionate force, and you have to actually care about their lives. That's why it's called Black Lives Matter, because they're afraid that it doesn't. So the chokehold was wrong. So let me go to the coroner. I'm not the one saying it, he is. A coroner eventually listed 3 contributing causes of death: cocaine intoxication, heart disease, and a chokehold employed by one of the officers. That's Romero. The coroner found hemorrhages and fractured cartilage in Howard's neck. See, one of the other cops who had his knee on him and was leaning on him, they asked him, why were you doing that? He's like, well, I felt that we had to restrain him. At that point, he was already restrained. And he said, besides which, I was exhausted. No, don't put your knee on his back like that. Because, guys, some people have heart conditions, and you don't know. So that's why you don't do a chokehold. That's why a chokehold is against violation, is a violation of the rules, even for the LAPD. And sometimes when you do a chokehold, you'll break cartilages in a guy's neck, and sometimes that'll make a big difference. So don't do that. Be more careful. There's already 4 of you, 6 of you. And do you have to restrain him? Yes, we understand you have to restrain him. But do you have to do a chokehold? Do you have to put your knee on his back? So it's not like we haven't seen this before. So then it goes to the Board of Police Commissioners. There's 2 former commissioners on here, but there's also a law school dean. There's a civil rights leader. He was tased. He was tased actually 5 times. They actually said tasing him 5 times was fine. They said that there was largely not too many other issues in terms of what they consider technical violations. But they also wrote, given the totality of the circumstances, the BOPC, that's the Border Police Commissioners, found that a detention officer with similar training and experience as detention officer A, while faced with similar circumstances, would not reasonably believe that the subject's actions presented an imminent threat of serious bodily injury or death. The BOPC found detention officer A's use of lethal force to be out of policy. So, you know what the cops claimed? They claimed that they felt that their lives were in danger. You saw that video. Yes, they were annoyed. Yes, it was a hassle. Yes, they had to restrain him. But were their lives in danger? Their lives were not in danger. He didn't have to use the chokehold. So, okay, it doesn't matter. They concluded he shouldn't have done it. So what did Officer Romero get as a punishment? The penalty was a suspension of 22 days. Romero was soon back on the job. Okay, look, that is deeply, deeply frustrating. But to me, I think the worst part of it is how little they seem to care once he was motionless. ProPublica explains, Rowe then begins, that's the nurse that finally comes in, then begins her first compressions on Howard's chest nearly 4 minutes after he was first visibly motionless. So I'm going to show you that part of the video one more time, because I want you to see the cops as they appear to be joking around a little bit in the beginning. But to me, what's even more important is, for God's sake, he's motionless. Somebody go down there and figure out, is he breathing? Is he okay? Does he have a pulse? They seem entirely indifferent to his life. Watch. There's the joking around. That guy on the right seems to kick his feet a little bit to see if he responds, but he doesn't. They finally turn him over when the nurse requested to take his handcuffs off. They're all still sitting around. For God's sake, he's a human being. No matter how mad you were at him or annoyed or whatever emotions you felt there, somebody help him. So doesn't it cross your mind, hey, this guy might be dying. He doesn't look like he's breathing. He's motionless. See, that's why they call it Black Lives Matter, because they want you to care about their lives just a little bit. And some of you might think, well, it's not just because he's black, and the cops might have done this to anybody. That doesn't make it better. We want, in this case, the cops are the powerful. They have badges, they have guns, they have the force of law. We want them to care about our lives. Yes, our lives matter. And yes, it is disproportionately to African Americans. Yes, again, in this instance, it was an African American. That's why they're trying to get you to see. And look, a family member of Howard, his daughter said, it sort of says that we don't matter because we don't have the badge backing us. They matter more than we do. It's more important for them to go home to their families instead of the people they come in contact with to return to their families as well. And so this is something we've talked a lot about on the show. That's what we're saying. And some cops say, hey, my job's to get home. No, it's not. Your job is to protect and to serve. We desperately want you to get home and we want you to be safe, but we also want the citizens to be safe. No matter what their skin color is, no matter what their position of power is. If that was a judge, they would have panicked, they would have gotten on the ground, they would have tried to figure out if he was alive or not. If that was a banker in a suit, they would have panicked, they would have gotten on the ground and tried to figure out if he was alive or not. But as you look at them, it appears that they don't think his life matters. And that's what the whole point of the movement is. That's what I wanted to tell you. My final judgment as Black Lives Matter is, it is way past time that we understand what they're fighting for and help them, because their lives and our lives do matter, and we hope that the police actually recognize that and act accordingly. It's not too much to ask for.